Well, hello, dear bear heart. Nice to see you in the flesh.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I feel like I've been feeling you through the ether for weeks and months, maybe even now, and it's such a pleasure to really feel you here in body. I feel like there's something extra special about when the energy's in the body, and then you feel the body, and then there's just this really special alchemy of that. So nice to feel you here in the flesh.
Thank you for feeling me.
Yeah.
It's great to be felt. It's wonderful to feel you. Thank you so much. I feel grateful. Very, very grateful, blessed. Here, fully present.
I'm excited. Glad you're here, really fully present. I'm so excited. There's so many things I've been percolating in me. And just not even consciously, I feel like behind the scenes even of just the themes of exploration that I feel like I can go, where I can go with you and just see what's there and what's there together too. And so I feel like we just go. Let's go somewhere. Let's do it. I was just outside feeling or thinking, something that popped right in was, and I was like, why not? Just go there. I am interested if there's anything recently in the last couple of weeks or month, like something really recent that's really shook you.
Within the past couple of weeks?
Yeah.
I would say not within the past couple of weeks. Within the past few months, there's been some shaking around. Past couple of weeks have been just so smooth. It's almost like we were just speaking of the river, and right before a rapid is usually really still. After the rapid is still. And so I feel like I'm in a still space or an eddy from the rapids.
Yeah.
And that feels very steady. So I would say right now in the past couple of weeks I've been feeling just super flow. Got onto some new land, continuing into questing and just being able to bless up and steward beautiful land. And so that's created a real stillness and a polishing.
Nice.
But I'm more than willing to open up about
the rapids. How about the rapids that were just right back there?
Oh, there's some
Anything
rapids,
from there?
sister. I don't know if you want to get into there.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious.
Yeah.
Was there any good stuff that came out? I mean, are you processing or integrating anything from that last rapids still?
Sure. So it's essentially it's a separation from a beloved, and one who is also a best friend and a partner in church, and so the weavings are very, very deep. Yeah, what do you want to know?
I want to know I feel like I already have a sense that you go deep, you go into all the places, and you're aware of yourself in the places, and you have ways that you work, and that you also maybe have an awareness of where am I extra working in, or where am I growing here, so maybe some growth edges, or where maybe you're still feeling a little messy.
Ooh, so some growth edges. I'll get into the messy too if that comes up. I'd say the growth edges are specifically within this relationship. I come from a background and a raising that, it's definitely, when you're in an intimate relationship, you're supposed to be possessive over. You're supposed to be, you're supposed to claim them, and throughout life, I've noticed that in my own life experience that hasn't been the most healthy. And when I did everything to continue that, and this is what I'm being taught by women in my family, being told as a young boy that your girlfriend or your wife really isn't going to know that you love them unless you're jealous or unless you're this. And that just didn't work well for me. And so I was...
Like it's never worked well for you, you don't think?
No, it worked very well in younger life.
Okay.
However, it wasn't what I felt was healthy. It didn't bring a calming energy to the relationship. It didn't bring a sovereignty to the relationship. It didn't bring a confidence to the relationship. And so I've been in the deep study of how to be so intimately connected to a partner and also be 1,000% open to each other's sovereignty. And for me, that essentially means if you and I are going to choose to be around one another, if we are going to choose to be the main energy in each other's dreams for the most amount of time per day, I want it to be because you are your most authentic you. It does, and that doesn't, if there's trust, if there's understandings, if there's boundaries, so on and so forth. I really wanted to offer the amount of freedom I was never offered in any type of a relationship. Because in reverse, also my previous relationships, it was very much of a possessive, to the point of like just simple stuff of like, no, you can't have any type of girlfriends, any type of woman that's going to be around you is only wanting this and only wanting that. So that's the whole loop. But I wanted to experience what it was like to have like a relationship with a woman and it not be sexual. And so in ways, and even if it was sexual, for me, I didn't want the relationship to be conditional. So the way that I figured was that if there was a time in life where we wanted this conversation to grow, that we should always have a safe space for it to grow. And I wanted her to know that specifically, like I'm giving that to you. So if you want other relationships in your life, I want to support that because above everything, you're my best friend. And yes, we are intimate with each other. And yes, we share such a deep, deep bond and connection and attraction for one another. But if you are going to be your most authentic expression, your most wild version, there may be seasons where my system is wanting one thing or another, especially like in deep partnership, intimacy and sex. There's sometimes where that gets to be reserved only for self. And that can be somewhat challenging in a relationship. So instead of having to go through like, well, what about this and what about that? It was like, look, if we're going to truly be in love, if we're going to really know what love is, if we're honest with each other, if we're this with each other, that with each other, like just be free and see what that actually feels like. Now, for most people, I think they think of sex when they think of freedom. But for me, I'm like, let's get over the sex conversation of what freedom can be and let's understand what true sovereignty is. Mm-hmm. And that's having very, very deep connections with people who align with you in many different ways and not necessarily blocking those. Mm-hmm. And so I did my best to open this up and not open the relationship, but open up just the opportunity to say, hey, I'm not going to leave you. I'm with you for life. Just let me know what you need. If you need another partner, let me know. I'll train him. I'll train him to be exactly what you need. If you want to start riding horses, let me know. We'll get you a beautiful horse. Like, just let me know what you really want in life. And with a lot of travel, obviously, and a lot of the work that I do in the bush, it takes my personal presence away at times. Mm-hmm. And for this specific relationship, over the years, there was a continuous, no, I don't want anybody else. No, I don't want anybody else. I only want you. I only want you. Mm-hmm. And until the point came where it was, well, you're away so much and I don't really want anybody else, but I feel like I need something, mm-hmm. something more. And so for me, there was a point to really like feel it for what it was in that moment. Mm-hmm. And to go back to every other part of me that in life was like, almost like the more I prove to you I love you, it'll make you less likely to go and chase something else. Always seemed to be the opposite. Now it was like the opposite, and I was opening everything up. And so we got to go through a beautiful conversation of what was most true in the moment. And what was most true in the moment was companionship. And so for me, the best thing to do when any type of companionship or wanting to connect deeper to others is to like bring awareness to it and to make it as healthy as possible. So I'm in this where I'm in service, I'm in the bush, and the woman who I love more than anything at this point over years of me saying, like, if you need somebody else, just please let me know. And it was no, no, no. Now the point comes where she says, hey, I do. And I'm back in the bush all by myself and thinking to myself, like, wow, like, what do I do? How do I show her? How do I show her I love her and also like completely set her free? Because that's all I want at the same time. But that doesn't mean, like, freedom doesn't mean just like you don't matter. It means like that is what will, for me, that's what will attract the most authentic. Is the ability to say, I can just be me, and that's not going to make you run. I got you. So the juicy part of it is have the conversation of, I completely understand and I love you and there's nothing wrong. Just let's keep this honest. Let's figure out how we can honor each other and give each other the most dignity within this, because there's going to be many sensations. And so I go through the whole thing. Well, do I know the man or the woman or whatever else? I do. I call in for a circle for the three of us to talk about how this can really be juicy. And to almost like essentially grow family, which is completely foreign, right? There's a lot in my system that's like, all right, I'm leveling up just by even talking about this being a possibility.
Right.
And the thing was that throughout the entire relationship, the fear for her was that I would have a relationship with another person and it would take time away from her, and that would be her worst fear. And so we have this conversation, and we have this circle and this meeting about how this can be the most healthy without anyone getting hurt, with the full every single part of this to give it life, and to understand it, and just to be honest about where it was, and if there were boundaries, what those boundaries are, so on and so forth. So we understand it, we establish the boundaries. I go off into another quest, and there's this deep rooted sense inside of me that, like, it was almost like that amount of freedom just to be in relationship and to know, like, you're gotten, you're taken care of, felt so right. And I utilized the time to really sit and stir with anything that was inside myself that maybe wasn't fully 1,000% choosing her, wasn't, maybe was still in some of the pain of what prior things happened in our relationship, so on and so forth. So I utilized these 2 weeks to just go through as much as I could to uproot anything that didn't see her in the most love and the most light. And I'm essentially coming home, and I was going to ask her to truly be with me the rest of my life and talk deeper about children. And I come back to basically having all the commitments and boundaries and everything completely crossed and broken. And so therefore for a little bit of time was just a real big mind fuck. Because it was the time where it wasn't like, no, this is the way it needs to be and this is how we're going to be strong. It's all right, I'm so open. I'm so open to just full allowance, because our integrity is going to be there, our word is going to be there, this is an amazing step for me to see how relationship can grow in a really healthy way, in an honest way, and one of like deep rooted truth. And then it sort of got shot to shit. And so I was in a process of deeply just allowing myself to feel all the sensations. And what I've learned and what has come from this, because this is a repeated wound, and in one way or another, what's come of it is like, I'm not going to let that guard my heart. I'm not going to put armor up. Still the intention is deep relations, deep connections based in integrity and honor and respect and the raw. And so the work has been to still offer love and understanding and the want to be able to grow with each other, just a little bit stronger boundaries and really like being focused of what is. So that was some of what was going on before. Was I thought I was actually going to marry this woman, and it was like it was too late, and it just wasn't supposed to be. And so that was pretty crushing. Yeah, especially being married before, going through divorce, having her be sort of like the star children to my daughters, and such a beautiful soul. And
when you felt it, I'm curious because I feel like also in the last 3 to 5 months, I feel like I went through maybe something similar, my version of that, and I feel like I went through so much. Sometimes I feel amazed how much physical sensation can come from like the emotional experience of something, like my actual heart. Like I feel like I actually felt my heart like breaking, like it felt like it was physically breaking, right? And then like the breath being so difficult to breathe, like just so much physical sensation with it, like really going into the actual like felt experience of what all that. For me, I'm going to say just maybe a couple more sentences of what my experience is, because I am curious if like it's similar at all for you, or if like how you experience that, like when it's just that crushing, or like the like what I thought was happening is so not happening, and it's maybe even the opposite of right what I thought was going to happen, or what my heart felt like it really wanted. Going through the pain of it, and then what I allowed was like a month or so to allow it to be an exercise of it just being my pain, without story, without it being like attached to a person, without it being because of something, it just became my pain. And then it was like a month of just like experiencing the waves of the, like my heart, like breaking, I can't breathe. I feel like all I can do is just go lay down and I can barely stay above water. Right. And then it was the leaning in to those waves of the pain that I felt like was the doorway. So that was kind of a lot to ask. Like when you felt that crushing, you felt that like how did it go for you? Like, do you feel it physically? Where did that lead you? Where did it take you?
Good question. So yeah, it was very, very sensational in the body. Yeah, it definitely heart, gut. Heart, gut were the big ones. And yeah, it's almost, like this is the thing, there's in my life, like if for the wounds that all the versions of me have endured, like if people were able to see the wounds, like there's a lot. So something for me, like with trust, is everything. It's above love, it's above everything else, because I can love somebody with all my heart, but if there's no trust there's truly only so much you can. And so for me, it was the trust thing. And when trust is completely like obliterated, where you're putting 1,000% of hope into like, just hold the line. Just hold the line with me. Hold the fucking line. And then it's like, no, there was too much confusion and stuff just happens. Like, oh, yeah, damn. So there was a huge, like what it felt like was almost, I don't even know, but somehow just coming in and just grabbing my organs and just ripping them. That's what it felt like, because for days and days afterwards there was no eating, and I'm used to fasting, but this was different. There was no way possible to eat, and for my system, when that happens, that's a deep one. You know, when everything just shuts down, like you said, really the only thing you want to do is just sort of lay there. And I don't live a life where I'm necessarily blessed to just sort of lay there.
Totally, me too. Yeah.
So for me, what I resonate with is that you said for about a month, you just allowed yourself to fully go there. And that's exactly what I did. I went to the river immediately. I closed out. We had another circle. And and I went up to the river and allowed myself for a few weeks to simply just heal and go through all the sensations. And even though I don't necessarily have other people witnessing it for me, like I witness it for other people, that's my opportunity to just fully let it integrate. And to go through the sensations and to go through the storylines too, to go through fully the blames as much as I possibly can until it's like, oh yeah, okay, I'm back here again. Okay, I'm back here, spirit. I know. Damn, it gets turbulent. When the energy's flowing, you know, we don't always go back to like, oh, there's a tool for that. And, oh, okay, there's another one. It's like, oh my God, the world is ending. Like, yeah, just wait for tomorrow. Deep breaths. So that's what I did. I just allowed myself to fully go there, and that always works. You know, there was a lot. So I got to expedite the process and know that if I am to be of service, I get to put all that on hold, and I cannot work with other people until I feel whole myself. It's just it doesn't work like that for me. So I made sure that I did what I needed to do to be whole, and not only that, but to actually start creating momentum to where forgiveness and deeper love and deeper understanding and deeper compassion can be really what I learned from all of this.
Forgiveness, compassion, love.
Deeper understanding.
Yeah.
I truly believe everyone's trying to do their best. No matter what. In life, whatever we've gotten in life, whatever our life experiences are, whatever our patterns are, no matter if it's somebody that's homeless and smoking a crack pipe, like I was watching last night as I'm driving home from downtown San Diego from getting into the airport, dude just smoking his crack pipe right there as people are walking by. You know, and like to anything in between.
I don't think to anything in between. Wait, say that again. Give me were there extremes there?
So
tell me.
So essentially, no matter who it is.
Yes.
If it's somebody that's homeless or actually I forgot where I was going with that one.
I got lost with the crack pipe guy. I was like, wow, I just so was there. I feel like with you that I was like, and I wanted to know like what the, yeah.
Maybe it'll come back around.
Compassion and the forgiveness.
Everyone's trying to do their best.
Everyone's trying to do their best. Yeah.
And what I was meaning by was some people will think like, oh, well, that's just a homeless person. Yeah, but you also have the one who's in a multi-million-dollar home that's fully coked out and laying on the bathroom floor because they can't cope. So it's like, are they not doing their best with what they have? Right? The same way as this person's trying to figure out the appropriate medicine for how they're feeling, so is that person. And it doesn't matter what demographic. And that's, for me, it's like it's the only way, because of how my life was before, that I can really rationalize how confused people can still be, just like fully. They're trying.
Yeah.
They're trying. They're on the road. They're on their path.
Yeah. It helps. Feels like when you say that, what I feel is like a greater ability to let go. Like, oh, they're trying. They're trying, right? And it's like, oh, I can let that go because maybe so there was something more holding that was like, can't. Yeah. And then I go down my path, right, of like, can't they do better, or can't I do better, right? Like there's expectations or whatever it is that it's like.
Well, because
right?
that's you just hit it.
Yeah.
Can't they do better is can't I do better?
Of course. Yeah.
Right? If there's something still inside that we think that isn't fully there, we'll be pointing it out about other people until we continue to just, as soon as that goes, well, why can't wait? Hold on. Let me go in real quick because I know there's a lesson for me right there. That's a nugget.
Yeah. So true, right?
Yeah.
I know.
If we're not judging ourselves, it makes it really hard to judge the next guy.
Yeah, I've experienced that so much. I feel like the deeper, isn't it fascinating how so much of the work seems, it's just, I call it simple math. Sometimes it can feel like it can get so complicated, right? Or like for me over the years, it's like, oh, this whole new territory. Oh, there's so many new lessons, right? And then it all boils down and then I get the nugget or whatever. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's the same thing I was working on like a couple months ago. It's the same. It's just simple math, right? So it's like the judgment or the release of the, simple. So for me, often it's like getting as much the simple math as possible because I know for me at least I can get so blown out into the detail sometimes that I'm like, okay, keep it simple. Simple math. What's the practice? Right? What's the practice? And I do feel like what you said comes just, I think it's just faster and faster these days. So maybe for you, it seems like for you with what you were saying, which is like it started off for so many years where it was like out there. It's that, it's them, right? Point out there. And then it was like over the years, more and more the bending finger was like, no, I don't know, right? But it's like, of course it is. And then these days, it feels like it's pretty much immediate. It's like as soon as I'm catching that I'm doing something, it's like, oh yeah, what's in? Oh yeah, find some peace there, or find whatever it is that the medicine I'm practicing right now. Like, oh, there it is. Yep, another layer of that, right? The ownership of it, that whatever it is, that outside mirror is leading back in here, and then and so maybe that also brings for me too. Like, maybe do you have any specific? I have mantras for periods of time that I'm working with, like that just help me for some reason. Maybe they're doing their best is one of them for you. Curious if there are any else like that you've been working with or that have been coming up for you these days of like lessons or like, just like a simple.
In the moment, it's another good question. And I was going to ask you like how you feel about when it was like going back in the quicker and quicker and quicker. Like how does that feel knowing that it is happening quite quicker?
Oh, like I feel so good. I feel relaxed. I actually feel these days, like in the past, I feel like there was so much resistance to it being me or mine that the resistance was it kept it more just painful longer. Whereas I feel like now it's like it's mine, and now I feel relief. I actually feel almost instantaneous relief. I'm like, oh, it's mine. Oh, I know what to do with that then. Like I have pathways that I just go zoom and I like soften or I deepen or I find that space of love that I've been nurturing for so many years. And it's like, oh, I got it. I got it. So it feels relieving. It feels like relief.
Good.
Yeah.
Good medicine. Yeah. The mantras that I utilize the most is truly thank you and I love you. So if I have somebody screaming in my face in the middle of the street, it's just thank you. I love you. Thank you. Because you are such a good teacher right now. True gratitude. It's not going to be in front of me unless it's there to sharpen me. And for me to sharpen, it's to soften. I've already been razor sharp. I know what to do with that. Now it's to, get the flow. That
really reminded me right there when you said sharpen. there's a man that I've been working with a lot these past few years, and his thing has been sharpening, right? And sharpening, it's like sharpening. And so when you said that, I was like, oh my God, because never in my life has there been an impulse to sharpen ever. And so for me, starting to lean into these last, especially 5 years, what is men's work? What's there, right? Because for me, I started my own journey of women's work, like, and what that is, and then healing the masculine within and all of that, and yet being way, way, way more comfortable in a female body, really nesting into the yin, figuring out what that is. It's been years of that, right? And then I feel like an accompaniment was this curiosity of like, I wonder what men are working with. I wonder what the men's work is right now, right? It's like the male embodied beings right now. And so one of these things this last like year or two was this sharpening, and I got so interested, and you just named a little bit of that right there, that for you to sharpen, at least at this point, is to soften. Is that true for you? Like through and through, there's no more sharpening maybe the way I used to think about it, or I don't know, sharpening.
It's more along the lines of like an aligning, you know, because the sharpening to sharpen is to be ready, you know, and to be ready when the distraction comes, when the confusion comes. And so how we sharpen can look completely different for me than other people. But it is like, what I would say in that is, yeah, it's definitely in the softening. And the softening would be when the fire is there, I could definitely utilize my fire because I'm very in touch with my fire. But if I just need to spritz a little bit of water around, like, then that's more effective and efficient. And we don't have to burn the whole place down. Yeah. And so that for me has been over many years, because a lot of my life was very much like just meet fire with fire. I got that down pat. They can only keep up for a little bit. All I gotta do is keep the burners on just a little bit longer. They don't have enough fire. They didn't live enough to have enough fire to actually withstand. But that's not healthy in here, you know, because that's constant, like, another mantra would be, I have no enemies. And so if there is something that's happening, if there is and has been an action that's been taken upon me, or literally just taken upon the person's self, and energetically it affects me, or at least energetically it creates some sensation that I get to feel, you know, I'm ready for it. I'm ready for all the sensations. That's that for me, to soften is to not necessarily like try to feel better, but to be willing to feel more. And so in those situations and in those times, when I was ready to go fire, I wasn't really ready to feel. I was just ready to conquer, prove a point. Now I got none of that left in me. I utilize all of that for growth. I utilize all of that for, you know, and I'm talking about like the unhealthy fire.
Okay.
One that doesn't understand how to be tamed. And so.
Question. Wildness, right? It was wild. This word wild has come up multiple times, at least maybe before too. And so fire, like, how is it for you to be wild and feel really wild and yet keep a sort of a fire, contained fire, right? I don't know. I guess I like thinking full wild or feeling full wild. Maybe wouldn't that also mean fire? Doesn't mean, right?
Yeah.
So when you go, I mean, do you go full wild these days or not?
I live it.
I know. So then how does that work with contained fire?
Okay, so if we look at it like this.
Okay.
You, like, to understand the fire, we get to be a fire tender, right? When you're a fire tender, you get to understand the range of fire. Anything from a small little ember or coal all the way to a big raging forest fire. What's the intention behind our fire? Like, yeah, we could say, I got fire and I got this. Yeah, but what's your fucking intention for that fire that's brewing inside of you? And or have you been a fire tender long enough with your own fire so you actually know the range of your fire, so you don't go burning some shit down that you weren't intended to just because we were mad or upset or felt pain, right? So we get to become a fire tender of our own fire. And in understanding the range, then we also understand how to, with reverence, manage that fire. And so in managing the fire, like I would if I'm actually with a circle fire, I'm going to be cleaning up the embers. I'm going to be making sure it's nice. I'm going to be making sure that there's enough heat, fuel, and oxygen to keep this going. If the intention is to draw people in close, super close, I bring the fire down because they want to feel more safe. If the intention is to teach people, then I want to make sure that the energy comes back up a little bit. So it's a medium fire. That way people want to feel the warmth, but they don't want to get burned. So they're really respecting it. There are some times where that fire gets to raise depending on what the energy is needed. But very, very seldom, what I've come to understand, and I'll speak from my own life in working with lots and lots of people with this, once we do understand the range, the times that we get to the high end of the range of fire without like purposely inducing it is so minimal. Because in society, it's very hard to be able to coexist if we don't know how to tame our own fire. And if the fire is too big, what do people do? They back away from it.
Run. I was going to say run.
Yeah. Some people run.
Yeah.
And so what I've learned through my own fire tending is that in many points of my life, people would run because the fire could get really, really hot, especially if you weren't paying attention. And so that for me is the softening. I'm willing to feel everything and not just stop the feeling and go straight to fire. I want to feel the subtleties. I want to feel the nuances.
Can I ask? So, for instance, have you had this experience? I'm imagining you have. Then, like, if a man is like in his full fire and he's fucking coming right with his fire, and I mean, are you able to? Do you make the choice to just go actually into the felt sensation, like choosing? You know what I mean? The inner feelings in contrast to going to fire?
Yeah, definitely.
In response?
Definitely.
How does that go? Like being a man, if there's a man doing fire and you're a man and you're tall and you know, I'm sure seem like energetically you can handle your business, but then you go into a softer feeling place. How has that gone? Like where does it go?
Oh, just because it's soft doesn't mean it's not strong.
Okay.
Yeah, so the softness of water also plows through mountains. So if we look at the subtlety of what maybe would be considered the softening in that moment, that doesn't mean I'm less capable. That means I'm actually firing with more capability in the moment to understand my tools because I'm willing to be here and present instead of just, no, I know better. This isn't going to happen again. And go into my pain body, go into my traumas. I'm able to completely step aside from those and to simply be there and say like, oh, you're my brother. You are my brother. I was there too. I was definitely there. I'm willing to feel your fire. So there's been many times that men come with fire. If their fire gets too much to where people aren't safe, well, I'm also a firefighter too.
Okay.
And but the thing is that if I'm going to be an example to many of what it is to be very strong and supple at the same time, then it's only in the times of fire to soften that will actually prove it. It for me, I don't live a life, and I've never lived a life where fire was difficult to get to. That was first. So that's why for me it's the juiciness. And just instead of saying, okay, I could easily shut this down, my capability, my training, my reflexes, it's just so fast and instant when energy gets to be switched. That's how I would think about it in the past. Where now it's less.
You mean like take care of it in a physical way, or like in some sort of a force? Okay, some sort of
some type of way where I'm
traditional.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, there's no growth to that. You know, that person, if they're coming with that much fire, and I'm still in my pain body, I think I gotta fight them. I think I gotta defend myself. I think I gotta do lots of things. If I can now step away and be the observer and actually take a second and just feel them, I can also see the hurt in their eyes. I can see the point where they've been screaming for help, and nobody's been there to help them. Nobody is actually able to witness them and what it is. So why are they in front of me? Because Spirit let them know that I'm able to witness them. And if you get a little too funky, I'll drop your ass, and we'll make sure that, we talk about it, and I'll sing a song to you afterwards. So it's like, and because with men, I show them my capability, there's different exercises where we see exactly what we got. Exactly what you got.
You're talking like in men's circle or men's
work,
menswork,
whatever you want to say. And that's another thing. If you really want to get into it, I don't, man, for so many years, I've worked specifically with women or specifically with men or combining the two.
Yeah.
I don't buy the whole men's work or women's work.
Good, let's go there. Tell me.
I've been a part of too many circles. I've heard the same stories, the same exact stories that I've been with sisters, and I'm thinking to myself like, man, if the brothers only knew this, and at that point, I just didn't think that the brothers got it. I didn't think they had it in them. I didn't think they had the true grit to step forward as protectors, to step forward as true masculine beings that understand the spectrum, but to understand exactly why we gave ourselves these bodies, why we're capable of being bigger and stronger in different ways. Like what's the what? And how much are we really willing to bring to this? I didn't think the brothers had it. So it's like you and I were speaking, most of the time the sisters are the strongest brothers. Until I just said, that's not going to be my reality. And I'm going to open this up. And then more brothers started coming. And what was just so eye-opening, it's the same conversation. It's the exact same conversation, although some of the time it's sisters saying that they're trying to connect to their feminine or their masculine, and these are some of the traumas that happened in their life, and these are similar types of programs that were implemented because of that, and these are the different societal structures that helped that. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. Most of us were wounded as children, and with that being said, then it's going to perpetuate very similar patterns. And we're going to have similar wounds, and we're going to go about them in similar ways because we went to similar schools, and we had, it's like we are so alike, it's not even funny. And the concept of this simply being men's work, and people always ask, Berhard, what's men's work? It's life, man. Well, what's the difference between women's work and men's work? Not a damn thing. Except for if you judge the two in a different way and you make it seem different, because they're just wanting to get together anyway. There may be times where there's so much trauma that maybe if a man has more trauma in his life around females, maybe the first couple of times he's going into it, it may bring something out that he doesn't feel comfortable with in speaking around other women, because he may have been raised that he doesn't want to scare women by his energy. And sometimes just the energy needs to come out, and vice versa. Sometimes sisters don't want to just open up and real vulnerable in front of men, because there's that level of, I don't know if we're going to relate. I don't know if there's trust. I don't know if they're going to look at me different, so on and so forth. But after, like, once we've started to key into the key wounds, and very similarly, like a doctor or a surgeon would go into surgery, when we can get real with the stuff, it's not going to take years and years and years and years and years. That's if we're bypassing or if we're trying to put in the background something. No, let's just bring it all here and let's dig in. Like, where's the root? And the root is, that I've noticed, most of the time we don't feel witnessed. We don't feel like we have safe space to actually go through deep process in our own healing or death or rebirth or whatever it is. Most of the time, there's been deep traumas that we have convinced ourselves out of, or it's so deep that it's the thing that we go to sleep thinking about and the thing that we wake up, but nobody else knows about it. And we're just holding on to those last little threads of sometimes somebody's trauma is also their burning flame to get them to be the most successful, or to get them to have the most this, or the best job, or the best relationship, or the prettiest wife, or so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. So if some people don't have the wound to feed off of anymore, what then? But that's men and women.
Yeah.
So it's all the same. Yeah. At this point, like, I see a brother and I see a sister. I see a sister and I see a brother. I see it all completely the same.
Makes sense.
Now, there are nuances that are different, right? You grow up in this society and you're a girl. There are different ways that you are going to process and different things, similar with like a little boy. But when you really strip it down, we want to be loved. We want to be able to be witnessed. We want to be in community that we can trust. We want to make sure we can trust our family, because especially if the trauma's happened and maybe the ones who you thought were supposed to keep you safe were the ones that were hurting you and then making pancakes the next morning.
Right.
That's confusing.
It is.
And if we have that level of distrust in every culture, how are we going to grow into a society where we can actually trust each other to be in full communion? Mm-hmm. It like, if we don't get to the roots, we don't actually heal.
Okay.
And so that for me was a big inquiry.
Yeah. Of,
okay, so we got the brothers' work, and then we got the sisters' work, and then now how about the we work? Mm-hmm. And that, it's powerful.
It is powerful.
It's powerful to witness each other, to see some of the, what were considered perceived differences, to actually, like, man, we are so similar. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We really do want the same things. Mm-hmm. We've just been told or had different life experiences that got us to live in survival and to survive.
Yeah. Yeah. When you said all that, I mean, I agree completely. And I also feel like it's interesting, because I guess what I'm feeling when you're saying that too is that yes is the main thing, and that in the weaving of it, I feel like there's also been some really powerful medicine that's come out of just the women, right, sitting together. And one of the things that I feel like has been really potent in my own life that I don't know, I just kind of have a sense that the brothers might not be as into it, is like moon cycle, blood flow, blood talk, blood, right? Like that. So much of women's work, I feel like in the last while, at least for me, has been really celebrating with my sisters, us all celebrating how our bodies show us the seasons and cycles every single month, right? And there's a lot of blood talk, and there's a lot of talk too about how where there's so much flow in our bodies, and there is in men's bodies too. And one of the, I think, beautiful mysteries of the woman body is that it's just constantly flowing. Flow. And so if we don't really learn the surrender to the flow fully, there's going to be just a deep stagnation, right? And so I feel like that, and again, not so curious. I don't know about the men, or like so much like, tell me about your blood cycle.
For sure.
And the men though too, what I feel like I've witnessed is that in being in a man body, it seems like what I've been able to witness in brothers doing some of that, because we did gender alchemy. I was telling you about that, where we were doing what the men were doing in men's work and the women doing were in women's work, and we were bringing them together and seeing where there was this alchemy. And you know, being in a man body with all that testosterone, I mean, I feel like these hormones are also teachers too, right? And all the testosterone and all of what the male anatomy like brings and does and wants, and just naturally like, oh, this like force, this will, this driving energy, right? That's a teacher. And I feel like in some ways, for men to really explore what that is together in these bodies that are really teaching them in this really specific medicine, right? That a woman, like, I feel like all day long I can resonate and understand, and yet I'm not feeling that in this body in this particular lifetime, right? And so, and then I feel like there is like a potent something, right? When a man has like gone and done and been, and then there's the weaving of the both, and the woman's at her full magical flow and comfortable with her blood and her all the things, and then that comes together, right? And then all the shared, that's always been there anyways, even with what feel like the differences, right? There's always, of course, been that common thread that is the common thread. It is the thing that is the bigger thing and the deeper, truer thing too. And it's still like, I feel like I would feel a little bit sad to just collapse it all and be like, we're all the same. Because there's just such a beautiful magic of a man body and a woman body, right?
I don't feel we are the same. I feel we want the same.
Okay.
Yeah, the big difference. No, we're not the same. And there's beautiful, beautiful reasons for that. However, what I would say is that there's more men that are interested about the moon cycle than I think most women understand.
Okay.
Most women haven't even started talking about their own moon cycles in a way where they were like really proud of until recently.
Yeah.
You know, the blood mysteries, it's ancient, and it's also one of the least talked about things and most highly like disregarded in women.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, it's just like, I grew up with sisters, and so I was the little brother that went to the store and got the tampons and and got the liners for my mom. And so I knew about all this stuff, and I was super interested in what was happening with my sisters because I knew that the energies were different. So like when I do speak to brothers, one of the first things I say is get to learn the moon cycle. Get to learn the moon cycle even sometimes better than the woman herself, to at least to understand the seasons.
Yeah.
And where within the season she's going to be, how that affects things, especially if you're going to be intimate. Like there's a lot that happens with that too, into knowing the cycle and when is a little bit just which times are going to be safer if you're not trying to get pregnant.
Totally.
Right?
The fertile. Yeah, the fertile period.
So to be able to merge with the partner or with a woman and understanding that, I think is the gap. It's men are just understanding that women are even interested in it, because it was one of those things where if a man typically did ask, it's like, oh, you don't want to know, you don't need to know. And so if there's a feeling that men aren't into it or don't want to know about it or whatever else, it's just because it's so new, but it's definitely something that's very important and very special. So I'm happy that you're allowing yourself to connect more and to connect to sisters and open that up. It's very, very, very special. You had asked one other thing. I just want to make sure I don't miss it.
I'm not remembering it right this second.
Okay.
Are you?
Yeah, no. Let's
Okay.
keep it juicy.
Okay.
So I'm with you. No, we're not the same.
Yeah, we
We're
want
not
the same.
Yeah, we
nice
want the same.
clarification. Thanks for And wanting. I feel like you already named that, and yet I feel like, maybe again. What have you witnessed us all wanting?
Well, okay, so we're speaking like now just so like numbers, right? Like thousands of people that I've been able to work with in very close proximity and see them through death and rebirth of what's most important in their life. They don't want to be lied to. We don't want to be lied to. We want to know, like, does honor actually mean something? Even though most of the time people will dishonor themselves 10 times a day, there's still the want to know that it could be an example, right? If not a reality, just an example somewhere of consistency.
Right. If someone else is honorable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's very simple. What I've noticed is like, okay, is there an example of what this can be? And that could be different for everybody. Safe space to be able to go through process, heal, make sure their family can heal, so on and so forth. So that way, like generational type of healing can be done. Most people don't even know this stuff could be done.
Yeah.
Like they just don't know.
Yeah.
They want community. They're done feeling like they're living alone and being a lone wolf. They want a sense of that. But again, they don't feel like they could trust most of the time, especially trust with vulnerability, so on and so forth. It's the simple things in life. I want to be safe. I want to feel free. I want to be able to be in my truth without being alienated from my community. I want to make sure I don't have to look over my shoulder.
when you were speaking, one other kind of question about plant medicine came in.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, I'm kind of curious because for me, I've had a little bit of experience in that realm, and most of what my journeying has been in my life is just my journeying. It's like all the places I feel like, but I also feel like I'm kind of a natural space cat where like, you know how cats naturally just like go off in space like every 5 seconds. It's like they're like somewhere else. I feel like, I don't know if that's just the way I'm wired or maybe we're all wired like that. I just let myself go there. But all of a sudden I'm like, you know, connecting some spatial dots and then I'm back here, you know. And I feel like it seems like for the awakening process, for the deepening process, for the healing process, all these processes that we as humans are, it seems to be, thankfully, I feel thankful about it, more and more collectively being willing to show up for these processes. It seems like plant medicine is playing a really crucial part. It seems like, because what I feel like I've noticed and been able to also sit with and hear people's experiences is that it kind of catalyzes and brings about in a maybe a faster or a fuller or some sort of a way where maybe like it took me 20 years to come to this aha, right? And like someone's getting it in a weekend ceremony. Maybe it's not as deep, maybe, or maybe it is. Yeah, right? So the role that plants are playing in this collective willingness to show up.
Huge.
Yeah.
Huge role.
Yeah.
Yeah. I look at them as amplifiers. They're just going to amplify what is already there. A lot of which sometimes we're blocking and we're hiding from, and we don't actually want to see, because if it was right here, we wouldn't be able to cope. Sometimes a weekend to go through what we didn't think we could cope is all that's necessary. But we took 20 years because we never gave ourselves that dedicated weekend. The plants play the role in amplifying what's already there, allowing our what some people will say is like the ego, but essentially it's just allowing the conscious self to go offline, to allow the subconscious to drain. Is, for me, what I see is one of the absolute most important. That's very, very hard for the average person to get into those states of consciousness unless they are quite experienced in the shamanic realms and allowing themselves to go into the different states of consciousness, whether that be through breath or dance or there's many, many, many ways. So it's allowing the consciousness to step aside so the subconscious can allow to integrate what gets to be integrated. When that happens, everything works as long as the container is safe. You know, and working with so many people and literally being in, I'm just like a quote unquote spiritual janitor, truly. I'm just cleaning up a bunch of shit. Over and over and over again, sometimes very literal as well, as we know in ceremony sometimes. And so it's, you know, the plants are having one experience, and we're having an experience. So how I see it is that we're having a collective experience. Not only am I able to feel what the plant is feeling at all times, now the plant gets to feel what I'm feeling. And there's a true merging that's happening in that. What our intention is to work with these plants, how it is that we're going to be connecting to them, linguistically how it is that we're speaking of them, it all matters. It's a relationship. Just as much as these plants can truly save somebody's life like no other, can also be a catalyst to where somebody may start to spin out if they don't have appropriate support, if they don't have anyone in their team that actually understands what's happening, if they themselves aren't honest about some of the things that are going on in their life or what's happened in the past to understand contraindications, if they're mixing and twisting and cocktailing and doing a bunch of stuff just because it's like, okay, it's another 60s movement and we're just going to try to be free and wild again. Like, no, that didn't work then. It's definitely not going to work now. Let's get focused. So it's playing a huge role. The plants are playing a huge role. What I hope, and I'm doing everything, and I have been for many years, creating awareness around the lack of respect when it comes to these plant medicines and these teachers, the lack of honor when it comes to working with these, and specifically just by the way people speak of it. Constantly, I hear, before people sit with me, I hear, well, I've done ayahuasca so many times, I've taken this so many times, I do this that many times. So essentially what I hear immediately is, you don't have a personal relationship with these medicines, because if you did and you were talking to them, you wouldn't be talking about them like that. Because that's like you and me having this, I feel this is ceremony. We're here, it's real space, it's a safe space, it's been set up, we know who's here, we have an intention of being here, we're in it, we're bringing full presence. If somebody asked me as soon as I left, like, tell me what you did, and I said, oh, I just did my sister. I just took Carrie. I just used. Like, even in the linguistics, it doesn't work. And so there's a disconnect and deepening of that relationship, which entail there's definitely going to be a disconnect of honoring the lessons that come through. That one person can go through an experience that 1 million people would have died to just have that experience of healing, and 2 days later it's like, oh, I'm back at the bar and I'm drinking shots and I'm doing this and I'm just totally forgetting everything that medicine just did for me. That's a lack, and that gets to be highlighted, because these plants are what will help society be able to feel ourself more, so that way connecting to the plant will be easy. Connecting to the plant easier in a more reverent way will help us connect to children in more reverent ways. It'll help us connect to everything that we've been talking about. If we don't have the personal relationship, then we will. We're just going to do them, take them, use them. And that's how society will continue. But for me, specifically when I'm helping people relearn how to work in these ways, it is paramount that they switch the linguistics. Because even in the switching of the linguistics of the way that they work with medicines, it will change the way that they work with anything. And that, for most people, like when we speak of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, and so on and so forth, and how important that is, specifically if it's in some people say, Bearheart, you're talking about having a reverent relationship with a plant. Like, you sound like a crazy lunatic. Well, I get it. And how about just the simple fact of kindness? If I'm going to be kind to a human, what, just because you're a human? Well, I shouldn't be kind to a dog in the same way. If I utilize something or learn something, shouldn't I be the same? So for me, it has nothing to do with being spiritual. Again, like I said, it's just deepening the relationships with what is. If we deepen the relationships with the plant medicines and these very specific teachers in ways where integration is by far the most important, leading up to and afterwards. The experience in itself, that 6 hours, 8 hours, 24 hours, whatever it may be, that's the smallest part of all of the work. That's 10%. Where's the other 90? That 90% gets thrown out the door. Not always, but a lot of the time. And so when I hear people come to me and I think that they hear about my experience in medicines, and so they almost want to like brag to me. And they'll say, Bearheart, I've done this medicine 57 times. And I think they're looking for like oh yeah, really? And I'll say, well, what the fuck are you doing wrong? And they're like, what do you mean? What are you doing wrong? 57 times that you worked with this energy and you're still talking to me about how like somebody cut you off?
Right.
What are you doing wrong? What questions are you not listening? Like, what answers are you not listening to? What questions are you not asking? What's happening?
Yeah.
Because that just doesn't seem right to me.
Right.
Or do you just want to go around flaunting that you've worked with this medicine so much? Because now we're getting to the more truth. So why don't we have that conversation? You know, because it's like the way that all of our ancestors worked with these medicines, all of our ancestors, because the medicines span the world. It was, unless you were the medicine person for the community, that was your job to have personal relationships with those energies. Other than that, it was not your job. So it was once or twice in your entire life. And that set forth, usually that would happen sometime typically around puberty, and then childbirth, and then potentially in like eldership. So those 3 times, sometimes depending on where you would be, wartime, sometimes they worked with medicine during those times as well, but very, very seldom, which means that they utilized that time and that space and that shared experience with the most respect. And the whole concept of a vision quest was like real. It wasn't just a trip. And that for me is what if I do preach about anything, I preach about actually adding to an honor-based society with all of our hearts and have respect for everything, but like especially their teachers. And I don't care if it's a human teacher or a plant teacher or an animal teacher or a spirit teacher, just have respect for the teacher. Do what the teacher says, especially if it's working. And what I've known to be true is that these teachers, they don't lie. They don't confuse. They don't bring up anything that's already there. And when we knock on their door saying, hey, can you please take your time away from everyone else in the world to come help me? Then be a student like you were in front row, ready to raise your hand if you had a question, and take notes. Like, wrap this up. Bring it full circle. They will not lead us astray. We will lead us astray. They won't lead us astray unless we're abusing them. And then they'll just amplify the parts of us that get to be lightened up for those learnings too. And I know from my own life experience, I'll wrap up with this. For my own life experience, there was nothing in the world, not a damn thing, my sister, that could have taken my ego offline, the ability to feel safe enough to allow myself to go, the capability to feel more love for myself to enhance the love that I feel for everybody else, to be able to be as compassionate I am for people that in prior life I was trained to harm and to punish. Nothing but the plants could have even came close. And that's why I am such an advocate in a reverent way for these medicines, and very much of a protector of the medicines as well. And it's customary for many of my ceremonies. I don't tell people what medicines are going to be in the ceremonies, or I tell everybody that I don't charge for medicine. The donation is for my time. Whatever happens in that's because it's going to be free flow. And the majority of the time, somebody would be hoping that they were going to work with a specific type of medicine, and that's not the medicine that's in the flow. And it comes out to find out that they know why at the end. And the right medicine is always there if we're ready to see it. And if we're ready to listen, everything speaks. So, let's get back to that. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing all of that.
You're welcome. Yeah. I'm very passionate about the medicines.
I can tell.
And it's been a very long relationship with these medicines. 30 years since I started working with medicines consistently. I was 8 years old. So there's a lot of seasons to being a student.
Yeah.
There's a lot of time in life where I disrespected the medicines. There was time in life where I definitely would say I was not honoring the wisdom that was coming through until I did. And then when I did, it made perfect sense. And it allowed the personal relationship to deepen. And in many ways that can happen. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. Anything else?
Deep gratitude.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'm wondering if you would like to share anything in closing. Anything that touched you differently than you may have thought. Anything that's being lit up. I would just say even more desire to continue conversations like this and keep it going throughout life. And then also when you were speaking to community, where I'm really, I feel like that lit when you were speaking about, when, I'll put it in my words. When I'm doing my work, when you're doing yours, when we're showing up in these ways for ourselves and then for each other and then in community together. And I just get so excited and interested, like what that feels like, because I know what it feels more and more like for me. I know what it feels more and more like in a potentially interpersonal, like, it's more and more I'm feeling it in my interpersonal dynamics of like, I'm pretty awake and self-accountable, and more hanging out and spending time with people who are doing similar work. And then even more though, to have, 3 and 4 and 5 and 10 and 20 and 40 and 60, and then more and more the feeling of what that feels like. I mean, I feel like that sparked that for me, of just that like, what is that, and what that feels like to have more of La Fuerza Sagrada growing within us and weaving together. And then, it feels so sweet, which feels really nice, because I know that there's like so much work to be done that can sometimes feel heavy. And so I more and more, I do feel like just making the choice to arrive in the moment with the sweetness, and then knowing the work will be done. Instead of focusing on the work that feels so friggin' heavy. It feels so big and so heavy on this planet, like the millions and billions of people and things that would be benefited with more support and more care and more love and more all the things, right? Instead, like, okay, in this moment I arrive, and there's the sweetness, and then there's a connection, and then there's more connection, and then growing it from that space of sweetness. It just feels really good. So that lit inside of me. And I feel like in general there were lots of things in this conversation that I know will like keep germinating and adding extra water, sunlight, nutrients to my own processes. So I'm just thankful for all that. I'm thankful for your heart, and I'm thankful for your sharing. And I recommend anyone who's interested. I really, really also appreciated listening to your Sacred Sense podcast, because I feel like it also gives so much depth to understand you when you speak. I feel like sometimes it's, I don't know, maybe easy or something to be like, oh, this person was always this way, or, he probably had it easy growing up, right? Whereas it just adds a lot of richness for me also to have listened to that, knowing what I would definitely deem as a fucking hard life and challenging upbringing. And then it just, to me, also adds a lot of oomph to the understanding of like when you say love, and when you say forgiveness, and when you say these things that again might sound trite if someone doesn't know exactly where that particular flavor of that particular forgiveness is coming from. I mean, it really, I really appreciate the levels and the layers and that is you, that you bring. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you
very much.
And thanks for being here. I think that's good for tonight. Yes.
Beautiful.
Good.
Much of a pleasure. Thank you. What an honor. Thank you, Spirit. Thank you for bringing us together. We could be anywhere else with anyone else doing anything else, and we chose this, which means that we chose this over our children as well. This is special. This is important. Thank you for having us both show up in alignment, authenticity, with love, with safety, with freedom, with truth. We could feel each other as one. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
So it is.
So it is.
So nice to meet you.